is Real Change, Real Impact with Brian May, EY America's Alliance Leader. In this episode, Brian is joined by Jim Davis, Ascend Elements Director for Enterprise Systems.
Welcome, Jim. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Let's get into it. I'm really interested in Ascend's mission. It's a lot about sustainability, and you're creating almost a brand new industry in that regard.
Very, very innovative company, very inspiring. It's not just about enterprise systems implementation, which I enjoy, but doing it for Ascend and knowing the mission of the company just kind of makes it very, very cool.
Now, I know the audience has got to be asking, what is that? And tell us about it, because you're on a rocket ship here with this organization.
Ascend is a manufacturer of engineered active battery materials from recycled sources. What that means is we, take in EV batteries.
End of life,
or battery scrap from the gigafactories, things like that.
Okay.
We reclaim one of the most valuable components of that, which is black mass. And then our secret sauce is basically we are able to then precipitate out what's called PCAM, or pre-cathode active material. And then eventually we'll get into one half of the battery, the cathode side, where is kind of the big money side of the battery.
And there's nobody else doing this.
Nobody does it that way. It's a startup company, scaling up right now, and we've accomplished a ton in the first year.
It's amazing how much you've been able to accomplish in that short time. And, the growth that you have with Ascend has created unicorn status for you. I know you've been valued over $1.5 billion. Growing like you are and will is a blessing, but also creates serious challenges in running an organization. So you made a decision, and a major investment decision, around moving on to SAP Grow and working with EY to come up with that plan and implementation. Tell us about the journey.
Well, again, wild ride, short time frame, but essentially when I came onto the company, the leadership of the company had actually made the choice for S/4HANA Public Cloud, the Grow program, prior to me joining. But when I joined, I was the only enterprise systems resource in the company. We very quickly made the selection to go with EY, kicked off the project literally within the first 2 weeks of me being there, and deploying business capabilities, to support the business. Activate implementation, fixed budget, and go live in January 2nd.
So Jim, help our audience understand the scope of what S/4HANA is going to do for you, or has been doing with you.
Yeah, so essentially a full scope ERP, starting with, core finance and treasury, full order to cash, procure to pay, plan to produce, including quality systems, quality management, warehouse management, and IM, EWM capabilities. So pretty much the full boat was the initial scope for the 6-month project.
So it's amazing, 6 months, right? EY and SAP have done, hundreds of large transformations together, but I don't think I've ever heard of one in such a compact time frame, covering as much scope as you were able to cover. I know the audience is probably asking, how does that happen?
I think one of the things that we really focused on right out of the chute as the EY and Ascend teams came together was kind of talking about some core principles.
Sure.
Right? We always focused on it being one team, right? No, there really were no seams, but there were also some things like, perfect is the enemy of the good enough. Because we have the time can't change. We made a lot of trade-offs and kind of focused on the core principles.
Tell me about, there's obviously next steps.
We just talked about the first 6 months. We haven't talked about my second 6 months to make a year. We're at the end phases of doing our plant maintenance implementation. So expanding different capabilities into the software, which will then kind of roll out to our other facilities as well.
With the sustainability message, and that's clearly something that I know our team working with your organization really prided themselves on, is not just the enterprise value of a system implementation, but also helping the world be more sustainable. So I would guess one of the major elements of an ERP system for someone that's trying to show sustainable outcomes is traceability, being able to show the end user or your customers that this was truly traceable to recycled material.
It's important to us, it's important to our customers, and I would imagine very shortly, rumors are it'll be very important to government regulators, whether it's ours or in the EU or other places in the world.
So Jim, my takeaways from our conversation are, get started. You mentioned that. Reduced time frame because you had very specific timelines that you were trying to drive for. You were able to implement SAP public cloud in I don't want to say record fashion, but in a very short time frame. And you were able to accomplish the things you needed to as a startup organization, but also you're setting yourself up for what you need to be in the future.
Yep.
So congratulations and appreciate your story today.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been a great conversation.